Hello there, fellow non-ballers. You're listening to the Non-Ballers Association podcast. I am your co-host, Grant Jordan from Los Angeles, California.
Coming in from Nanjing, China, I'm your other co-host, Bobby Wilson.
An interim third man looking for a full-time roster spot. We'll see. The always charming, the affable, the friendly, the likable.
Wow.
The always smiling, the swashbuckling, Chad Kenny.
I thought that we already moved past the fact that I'm a full-time member now.
Well, we were going to, but then Ryan Hollins, just up until a day ago, was still available. They snatched him. Yeah, so that was really what we were waiting for.
Yeah, there's a few people on waivers.
Right.
So, but for now, your spot is safe.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even need to introduce myself then.
No, you need no introduction at this point. But go ahead and introduce yourself.
Ryan Hollins,
Yes.
if you're listening to this, man.
And let's be honest, he is. He has nothing else to do.
One of the only people that went to UCLA I don't like.
Did Ryan Hollins go to UCLA?
Oh, yeah. And we had him on a couple of our LA basketball teams or California basketball teams.
Mm-hmm.
He just always looked like he
Yeah.
right? And then the part of his brain that allowed him to be a conscious basketball player was just like, had been taken out first,
I don't know. He's a weird player that sustained an NBA career. Me and Bobby were just talking about it. He's 31 years old.
Right.
That's amazing that someone that pointless, I guess, if you're 7 foot,
It's the height.
chew gum,
It's
that's
the height.
the thing.
Yeah.
But he doesn't even have, like, the, like I was reading the Scalabrine article on, what's that website, the Players Tribune.
Yeah.
And, you look back at Scalabrine's career, whatever, but he was also just entertaining otherwise.
Yeah.
He isn't even entertaining otherwise. He doesn't even have, like, the Hashim Thabit, like, that joke built in. He's just a really random guy who was
Totally random.
here forever.
Yeah, I've never heard, like, locker room stuff about him, good or bad. He's just sort of this ghost that wanders in on the court.
I mean, when he played for us, like, he would come in and it's like, oh, okay, there's Ryan Hollins taking 3 fouls in 3 minutes for just absolutely no reason. Like, no one told you to go in there and just rough him up.
Played for us. Was he on the T-Wolves?
Yeah, he was on the T-Wolves.
Did he get on the T-Wolves? Okay, good.
I actually think he was on the
Yeah,
Timberwolves,
he might
too.
have been, actually.
Total journeyman.
All right, well, let's get crack-a-lacking. What do you say?
Well, let's start with
enough Ryan Hollins talk.
Yeah, that's segment 1 of the podcast, Ryan Hollins.
We just lost 35% of our audience
Yeah.
off the bat. Oh, Ryan Hollins talk this week, guys.
Just switch
It's
to
too
the
old
starters.
podcast
Switch to
about
the starters.
So we're going to start off with the Lakers. We're going to do Lakers and Golden State talk up top because it gets talked about a bunch, but it's still fun to hit a little bit. So we're going to start with the Lakers. And breakingly stupid news has just come out of Los Angeles and has already happened. Chad, will you tell us what the genius brain trust of the Lakers have decided to do tonight?
Well, it doesn't seem too far off from what we had seen in person when D'Angelo and Randall weren't getting any play in crunch time up until the point that they made that small comeback, but announced that those two guys, their last 2 lottery picks, were not going to be suiting up tonight because
Not starting.
Larry Nance Jr. and Lou Williams and Nick Young and all these great, illustrious basketball players that I've just named could not, be any better for this situation.
Well, Byron wanted to switch up the starting lineup, shake things up a little bit.
What he said.
Yeah, get some wins in there.
Yeah,
Interestingly,
sometimes, I get bored of music and I just put it on shuffle. So, I mean,
there you go.
Maybe that's what he does. He has a player playlist. Just hits shuffle. And he just sees, whatever pops up, that's fine. We'll set the 2 most important players for our future for starting now.
So that's one story from tonight. The other story is Kobe's stat line tonight. 3 of 6. Only 6 shots.
Wow.
And he has not attempted a 3-pointer.
Wow.
So this is 3 minutes into the game?
It's the end of the first half. He's got 6 points, 6 boards, 3 assists. Shooting 50% from the field. His plus-minus is a -8, which is the worst on the team. Probably has something to do with the defensive side of the ball. But, yeah, pretty good game from Kobe today.
See, I think that, when Jordan came back, people like to think that he wasn't great, but he kind of was. And
He's still 25-5.
And if Jordan was ever, no matter how old, if he was 48 years old and he came on the court and they were playing that Pistons team and they were down by 22 at halftime, he would literally just leave the game, get in his car. I was wondering if Kobe has attempted more threes than Steph Curry has made or not. That would be a nice comparison to look at.
He's took 17 threes on game. That is insane.
Steph doesn't even take that many, and he's 6'10".
Well, and actually, Steph Curry has taken that many one time before, but it was in a playoff game. So that was more threes than Steph's ever attempted.
Can you believe Kobe took 17 three-pointers this season, knowing he's shooting below 20% from three-point range or at 20%?
Hard to fathom. What kind of
human being is this?
I'm kind of like entertained, and
I'm entertained. No
but
doubt.
yeah, I think that you're giving him a little bit too much of your energy right now. I think we're all aware of just how piss poor this whole situation has been.
Yeah, I won't divulge into all my typical.
What about them Red Hot Warriors? Still undefeated.
Yeah. Let's knock those Warriors. Let's get this Warriors conversation out of the way.
Oh, no, they're my favorite team now.
Out of doubt.
So the Warriors are 22-0. Here, let's just answer these questions quickly.
Well, let me just say, I think it's real quick. I think it is more unpopular to be a Warriors hater right now than it is to be a Trump supporter.
Well, it's hard to hate on greatness, you know?
Wait, so do you think they're going to get to the never mind who cares about this 73-10? Everyone's answering that question. Are they going to break the Lakers winning streak?
Well, I mean, Grant and I were talking about a really interesting little
The answer is
setup, and I don't, that would be ludicrous.
They're going to lose to the Pacers tomorrow.
So thank you for answering that question, Grant, and that using it to jump into a wild tangentially related story. What was going to be the story, Chad? Go ahead and throw it at us. What's up?
Well, Grant was telling me, and I read it too, that if they are going to break the record, it's going to be on Christmas against the Cavs.
They tie it. They would tie against the Cleveland, which would be, aside from the fact that I want the Pacers to beat them tomorrow night, otherwise, that storyline of the Cavaliers, who should be at full strength by then, Amon Shumpert, and Kyrie Irving are already in practice. They're supposed to be back within a couple weeks, so they'll be healthy by then. If they were going to tie the record on national television against the Cavaliers at full strength, that would be about as an exciting, probably the most exciting regular season game in our lifetime.
If they tie that record, then they'll probably go 50-0. Like if they win 33 straight games,
can they go 82-0?
Is it possible?
I will never be able to go back to the Bay Area. That'll just be plastered everywhere. That will encompass all of the San Francisco Giants championships since the 2000s.
I would literally just quit. I'd pull out of my life, and I'd become a Golden State head. Like people are deadheads. Yeah. I would just follow the Golden State Warriors from city to city, be by the team bus.
Oh.
I'd learn some Grateful Dead tunes. Bobby, throw some good ones at me. What would I learn? Something off American Beauty, that album.
I like that album, yeah. Well, Box of Rain would be my choice.
Box of Rain.
Come on.
I don't know how Bill feels about it.
For the 25 and under demo.
We got to call up Big Red.
I'll learn some Fish tunes. There you go. That's a little bit more contemporary on the jam band scene.
What is the 2015 jam band now? Like, is there after Fish, post Fish jam band?
Freeze McGee. They're awful.
Well, before that, it was Dave Matthews Band, right? It was really the.
You mean Dave?
But they have proper songs at least.
You don't call him Dave Matthews Band.
Fish doesn't have any radio songs. Grateful Dead has a couple. Dave Matthews had legitimate like Billboard song. Yeah.
Are we really doing this right now? Is this
Dave,
really?
Bro, Dave. Nothing's better.
But they don't have jam bands. Don't happen every decade. I mean, you really only have two powerhouses, really.
So the Warriors are the jam band of this new age.
That's true. The Warriors are.
And you know what's even better? You could probably get on this with Bill Walton. Since Luke Walton's on it, you could do Grateful Dead / Golden State tour with Bill Walton.
He'd be in.
Does life get any better than that?
Two last things about these Warriors. First of all, I know Grant wants to preview the game tomorrow, and then I got something. So Grant, give us the Warriors Pacers preview. What's the chances of the Pacers knocking off the Giant?
So Golden State's last game was on Saturday against Toronto, which they almost lost. They were down 3 with like 3 minutes left, and Steph Curry hit some unbelievable threes and some timely turnovers for Toronto and missed free throws by Kyle Lowry, who had a great game also at 42. The Pacers have lost their last 2, both winnable games. Like we were in it down the stretch. Just Portland was crazy hot, and the overtime game versus Utah a couple nights ago. So anyways, we're on 4 games of rest after our 4-game West Coast road trip. We're on 4 days rest. Golden State will have 2 days rest, so both teams are at full strength. We're at home. We're a team that is playing a version of that style of basketball. I think we're second in the league in three-pointers made.
Right.
Obviously, a distant first is Golden State, who's taking that to a whole other level. I feel like, we have a puncher's chance as good as anyone does against this squad, and Harrison Barnes is still out for Golden State, which is you're definitely seeing that being a big deal, especially with the fact that Draymond Green has been really poor from three-point land, which is like you're always kind of have to guard him. But if you can start stepping back, that affects your ability off that pick and roll for him to do his drive and kick stuff. Like it could be a perfect storm where the Pacers can pull this off. Obviously, betting odds would be on Golden State, but I think we have a puncher's chance. And Paul George coming off his best game of his career, 48 points in a loss to Utah.
That was nice.
I think this is the best chance the Warriors have of losing on this 7-game road trip is right now. I mean, whatever, they'll be more tired towards the end of it, but they won't be like the combination of being in the middle of it and playing a good team is a pretty good shot.
Yeah, the nice thing is they have a couple days rest of them, but you're right. I mean, it definitely is. The rest of the road trip is Boston and Milwaukee.
I think Boston could easily be a trap game.
Let's talk about who they have coming up.
Scrappy
But they have
Boston
3 days
team.
rest in between that game, even though.
Yeah,
That's
that's
nice.
true. That's true.
So they have Boston coming up, Milwaukee.
Oh wait, the Boston
Phoenix?
game, that's the David Lee grudge match game.
Yeah, David Lee grudge match.
Ooh, that's circled on David Lee's calendar. Never mind. That's a loss.
Phoenix, Milwaukee, Utah, until we get to. So that's, I mean, aside from the Pacers, you're not looking at anybody who's, you're looking at Phoenix, who's 8-13, and Utah, who's 500. So no one really that good aside from the Pacers. And then they get to Cleveland on Christmas Day. The big ABC first nationally televised day of basketball.
And the champions will be at home.
Wait,
I mean, it is possible. If they can
hold on. If there's only 5 games until then, is there only 5 games? Because that doesn't add up to 33. That's like 27.
No, yeah, it's not that game. It's a later Cleveland game. You know what? I don't see that. Let me do the math. You're right. That doesn't add up at all.
Because I know, well, there was talk about like trying to get their wins from last season tacked onto the end of it. I don't know if you heard about that, Adam.
Oh, you know what? That's what it is. That's why it's that. That's why it would be that streak.
That's complete nonsense. Like
It's
those
like
things
when
matter.
I know it doesn't. But it's like when Tiger Woods completed the 4 championships, the 4 majors, but not in the same calendar year, so it didn't have the same credibility.
Well, yeah.
Still pretty crazy impressive, though.
Tiger Slam.
Beyond crazy impressive. The Tiger Slam.
I mean, you don't go into the end of the regular season with the same mentality that you start.
No,
with.
it's
You
different
can't
than it
compare
is
to golf.
Golf
You cannot
is still
compare to the NBA.
more
Golf
technical.
is still like
tied together.
They're basically just mirror each other at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, also who's sitting their guys at the end of the season?
Yeah.
Who's at full strength? Who's in playoff hunt mode like the Warriors were?
But I'm glad we figured that out. So that's what it is. Adding on the previous season, that would tie the record.
All
well,
right.
there we go. So we're looking at a very exciting matchup on probably the most exciting on this East Coast trip.
Definitely. I mean, they've had some close calls in this trip, but this is their last game that's like above 500 until they play Cleveland.
And then the Warriors will lose, and we'll never talk about them again. All right, Bobby. So what's next?
Well, yeah, we're done with the Warriors talk. I was gonna say Davidson retires Steph's jersey. Do the right thing. Silly, but
He didn't graduate. He's not a good role model for the kids, Bob, and I get it.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. You can get an honorary degree if you graduate or don't graduate, but to get your number retired, you gotta finish school. Makes a lot of sense.
That's serious stuff. He's not as important to the school as the kid that got a BA in art and business. It's just he's a double major. You can't weight that against Steph leaving after his junior year. Come on.
Well, no, and I mean, of course, the intelligent thing to do is like, look, you got a business opportunity for a couple $1 million. No, you stay put. Oh, what? Oh, I'm gonna take a couple $1 million.
You don't take that opportunity. You take one more year of school.
I mean, you weren't with Steph Curry when he was shooting in the gym, but you weren't with Marshall Franklin, that double major, who was up in the library,
taking Adderall
all hours of the morning. He's got to also have a job on top of that double BA.
Love of the game, baby.
It's scary to think about that Steph Curry does not have anywhere close to that kind of work ethic. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's silly.
Yeah, what is he thinking?
All right, let's move on.
Maybe Wake Forest will retire his number instead of Chris Paul's. Is that an option?
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
That was you are really struggling these last couple of weeks.
He wrote that one on his bathroom mirror this morning, like on Post-it note. He's like, remember that later.
Hashtag at Chris Paul, the real Chris Paul.
You know that hashtag. You know you actually have to tweet those things out, Grant. You can't just.
You can't just say them out loud.
That's me.
That's not gonna work.
They won't trend at all.
That doesn't work like that.
You just open your window and shout them to the to the air.
I thought you just tie it to like a little bird and it just flies out in the window. Is that how it works?
The good old days.
And to the next segment.
Next segment is, well, you guys choose. We're talking East Coast basketball, Philadelphia or Washington. Where do you want to go? Which
I definitely want
dysfunctional
to start with
situation do you want
Washington.
to go
I know
first?
you've done your research on Washington. Let's go there. I barely care about talking about Philadelphia, but there's some interesting things. But regardless, let's start with the Wizards. You got some good stuff.
Okay, well, the Philly one's more hot takes anyway, so we'll do hot takes later. All right, so with the Wizards stuff, the Wizards are 8-10, kind of a disappointing start. And today, the Wizard sources said replacing Whitman is a last resort, one that's not being actively considered. Randy Whitman is the most losingest coach in history as of last year, and some people have thought that he, maybe he's a little inept or bad at his job or whatever. He had the whole famous, remember that whiteboard twist turning thing? That was great.
That was such a good one. That was such a good one.
Unbelievable vine.
Ah,
One of the best vines ever.
That was one of the best vines ever.
So he had that, and then this year he's been beefing a little bit. You remember the Gortat beef a little bit, called out Gortat, said he couldn't get a defensive rebound. Then
I live and die with every one of those beefs. I'm telling you, I remember.
it was a famous beef. Chad, you remember. NBA Reddit must have felt the reverberations of that. And then recently, John Wall on November 26th said, we shouldn't sit me and Bill together. It's a bad idea. Although this season, when Bill plays without Wall, their production drops off 30 points. They go from a team that is like 103 points per game or 110 with Wall. With just Wall and no Bill, they're 110. With Wall and Bill, they're 103. With Bill and no Wall this season, they're at 80. Like points per.
So is Bradley Beal not that good?
That's this season only, and that's 15 games. Last year, he was 103 offensive rating with just Bill and no Wall. So last year it was passable. This year it's bad. Defensively,
what happens when you build your team around a ball-dominant point guard who can't shoot? I mean, other guys are going to get looks because he can slash, but I mean...
Rajon Rondo 2.0 over there in Washington.
We're specifically talking about the problem with Bradley Beal when he's playing without John Wall. When John Wall's playing, they're fine.
I'd like to look at the stats at, like, shot creation for Beal and how he stacks up against other two guards in that regard, because he...
Or how many are off the dribble as far as he's a spot-up player. I mean, he can create his own offense, but he's a spot-up player.
Well, that's the main problem with it when it's just him. He's not that great at it. But the other big thing, so whatever. So that's one thing. So the beefs with the coaches, and then the fact that they haven't quite figured out how to rest Bill and Wall. Maybe they haven't figured it out. Although that game that John Wall was complaining about when they went back in with him and Bill, they played the last 7 minutes of the game. They scored exactly 0 buckets from the field. So
right.
And that was versus the Hornets. But so the other thing is that they lost Paul Pierce. We thought that was going to be a big deal. Nene's declined. He's playing 8 minutes less than he was playing last season per game. They added Jared Dudley, and Otto Porter Jr. is playing a career-high number of minutes, right? So all of those moving parts. So they started out the season playing Chris Humphries. With that
because Jared Dudley was out still for the start of the season.
Right, because Jared Dudley was out still. With that lineup, everybody was doing pretty good. Except for Chris Humphries, who was shooting 28% from the field in the starting lineup.
Oh, my God.
With just the other starters around him. Yeah, with John Wall.
But I feel like he was still trying to figure out his new role, like just being a fake stretch four and stuff. I give him a little bit of a pass.
Right. And it's not that big of a deal as long as the other guys are performing well, right? And it was 44% from Gortat, 49% from Otto Porter. Now, since Chris Humphries has been out and Jared Dudley has come in, Otto Porter is shooting 17% from the field with that lineup. Not the whole game, just with the lineup of that starting crew. He's shooting 17%. Gortat is thriving with more floor space, shooting 71%. So they're still working out, playing faster, playing smaller, and it's kind of not worked so far.
Well, the thing is my thing with the Wizards that I was thinking about is that we've given so much credit to them early because they have one of the most dynamic backcourts, at least in the Eastern Conference. You can definitely make that top 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that we're seeing like a really fast paradigm shift where now teams are succeeding with like big men in the East more so than they have in years past. And I think that them having that liability with that lumbering kind of front court that the Wizards have, and just not being as like, when you're going to go up against someone as dynamic as Whiteside and Bosch,
Right.
like going up against you and like, Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson. Even Mozgov's got a little, shimmy,
Right.
and he's pretty dynamic. So we're just seeing that, like, look at Andre Drummond. Like, they don't have like the greatest backcourt in the world, but if you can go inside out, you can have a little bit more balance in that starting lineup. The Wizards are just so reliant on that backcourt. It's just not the kind of solid basketball that's winning games in the East, which is a stronger conference than it's ever been in this decade, arguably. So
Yeah.
Grant was saying before the podcast that you thought they just didn't quite have the talent level, and I think that's kind of what Chad's talking about.
The thing is, I still kind of believe in this team because Bradley Beal is 23. John Wall is still a really young player, also like 24, 25, whatever he is, 24, I think. And Otto Porter Jr. is young. So I just thought they were going to make – because we saw them really progress in the playoffs and lose to Atlanta in the second round. And kind of the only reason they lost was because of the injury to John Wall at the end of that. Like, they would have been right in that series and probably won that series. So you thought they had made the leap, and Bradley Beal had a monster playoffs. He had an okay regular season, a lot of injuries, and had a monster playoffs.
Right.
Then you just expected that momentum to kind of flow. I mean, losing Paul Pierce during the regular season. He played big for them in the playoffs. I know he started during the regular season for them a lot of the time, but he wasn't that important to what they were doing.
No.
You thought the natural progression of the rest of the players would take him off to that next spot, as
and
we talked about.
You would want your top 5 draft pick in Otto Porter to get
to finally get burned. It seemed like a perfect transition. It's just that everybody stayed put. Like, John Wall doesn't look any better than he did last year. Bradley Beal doesn't look any better than he did last year. Otto Porter Jr. has been a bit streakier and better in those streaks, but still not the reliable third option you're looking for.
Well, what I would say to support your argument, but also what we realized is that the East was so bad the last couple of years that the Wizards were actually just put in the playoffs out of like.
You got to think they outplayed basically the 1 seed in that second round. So I mean, it's not like they were a joke team who just got throw one in there.
And you're totally right, but it's just like I think that they were maybe they were one piece away from really taking that leap, and because they weren't the lottery like they were accustomed to, like they just didn't have the option to get that guy on the market.
I thought Bradley Beal was going to be more of like a legit steady guy, and he's always injured and his inconsistent thing.
I think there's 3 things going on. I think 1, the Bradley Beal thing, like he isn't quite as good as they need him to be. 2 is that they just have a lot of roster and starting lineup upheaval. So you're saying last year they lose Paul Pierce, but besides Paul Pierce, they also replaced Nene from the starting lineup. So it's like 2 pieces are gone. And then the third thing is the talent level, because the backcourt is solid, but they don't have let's take Golden State, for instance, because that's another backcourt team, or let's take the Raptors, which is another backcourt team.
Let's take the Raptors.
They don't have DeMarre Carroll. Like, they don't have just even that guy. They don't have Corey Joseph off the bench. Like, they don't even have just a third dude.
The Wizards got so locked up, with their cap that they just couldn't pull a guy like Carroll and overpay someone like that, like the Raptors kind of did when you think about it. I mean, I'm sure there's metrics and stuff that'll back up why he's an important guy to have for a playoff run for a contender. But
you don't need metrics to back it up. Think about how much better they would be if the Wizards had DeMarre Carroll.
Right, exactly.
Like if he just had a solid guy who produces and plays defense and is a good two-way player.
But you wouldn't pay that guy that kind of money 5 years ago because no one caught on to the fact that, hey, like these are the kind of guys you should be getting for your third option.
But maybe just 5 months ago you would have.
But we haven't seen the newest incarnation with Ryan Hollins.
That's
true.
All right, let's back up. You're right, Grant.
So we haven't seen what Ryan Hollins is going to bring to this whole lineup and dynamic of the squad.
That's the other note on this is that Martell Webster, who's 29, and who had like a good run with the Wizards 2 years ago. I mean, whatever, he's been on the team for a while.
He did some decent things.
But like 2 years ago when they first made the playoffs, that was his big breakout season. Then last year's next season. This year he hurt his hip and is gone for the whole season. So they just cut him.
They paid him. Mid-level talent, upper mid-level talent money.
Yeah, he was a great 3-point shooter.
$5.2 million a year.
Yeah, that is literally the mid-level exception. But I'm just saying that, I just don't think there was that guy available on the market for them that would fit what they needed per se. And I just also feel like because they've been successful, they can't go through the draft to get that last guy. So, I mean, that was kind of tough. But
That's true.
They also used to have a lot of glue guys like Gary Temple and Trevor Booker and Seraphin and like all these guys that would come in and just kind of just make noise. Who was that point guard they had that was always efficient for them when he would come in? But anyway, so they had guys like that. They don't even have that as much as the lack of superstardom.
I don't think they need a lack of
fading-
superstardom. They just need one more rotation player. Like they need one or two more rotation players because as Nene has started to slip. And with losing Paul Pierce, who's like a consistent rotation guy, Otto Porter's not. They just don't have enough consistent rotation guys because you look at their roster. I mean, Garrett Temple plays still, and he's terrible.
I was saying that the guy that that I like, that was the pickup for them, that was supposed to be that guy, is Gary Neal, who didn't have a great year with Charlotte last year, but it's still like a legit NBA backup point guard who can bring some firepower.
And they had Andre Miller. They had guys that come in and just like make plays, And Trevor Booker, look what he's doing in Utah. Just as like they say, he's like the best locker room guy. He tries his ass off because he's undersized.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you're right. They don't have, but none of those guys were a third option in that regard. But like, at least if you don't not have the third option, you have a bunch of other rotation guys who are gonna make up for it.
Yeah. Well, at any rate, there's some problems to fix, but I think we all agree, at least I know me and Grant do, I don't know about you, Chad, that they shouldn't fire Whitman 20 games in. They don't seem like they're going to. But for the same reason.
I don't think anyone saw the East being this strong off the bat. So, I mean, Whitman just has to adjust, I think.
What's the crazy thing about go ahead, Chum.
No, I just think that they have to just adjust their, just reapply their expectations for this season and kind of figure out, okay, what do we need to do?
An interesting thing with them is that they literally, like, you look at the teams ahead of them and in the playoffs, they're 8-10 right now. Like, it's not, there's a very high likelihood they just won't make the playoffs this year. And this was a team you were picking, and not just you. I mean, you were probably a little higher than most people, but like, as high as the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. Now you're looking at a team that legitimately may not be even in the playoffs. I mean, you're looking at the Pacers, who are looking a lot better than people thought, and Detroit, who's gelling fast as not, but even Orlando, Boston, these teams are out of the playoffs, and they're good basketball teams, particularly Boston. I mean, there's nobody who's like, okay, the only one I can maybe see is Charlotte, because I don't really believe in them for whatever reason, But otherwise, like, I'm looking at Miami, Cleveland, Chicago, Indiana, Atlanta, Toronto, Detroit, Boston. Like, that's 8 teams right there who are just, you see them play this season, they are as good talent-wise and just playing better basketball. Like, the Wizards might be out, which is kind of crazy.
The big thing is, regardless of talent or whatever, what you just said right there, they're playing better basketball. Because that's really, the Wizards team is getting looks, they're missing shots, and they're turning the ball over. And then defensively, they're still gambling in places here or there. But the main thing is missing shots. Like that Hornets game, they were 1 for 20, I think, in the fourth quarter. I mean, they didn't score for 7 minutes from the field.
Yeah.
Like, so you just, even with
production-wise, they just don't have anything.
Right. So even with the roster or whatever, whatever you want to say about the roster, eventually you have players and you have a system and you're playing faster, you're playing with better pace, and you're playing smaller. You're going towards what the NBA is trending towards. Eventually, guys just got to make shots.
Well, now we've moved away from having a solid backcourt as being just the one thing that guarantees you like 40 wins a year. Now it's like we're just seeing just that shift. There's the fact that Okafor, Porzingis, and Towns came in this 1 year has already been like, oh, like if any of these other teams in the league had those guys, it would completely change, and there's guys coming out of nowhere like Drummond and Whiteside, like I had mentioned, that are like literally changing the way that the game is being played in the Eastern Conference.
They're definitely changing the dynamic of the conference in ways we didn't expect.
Absolutely. Like even if Orlando, so Orlando got rid of Gortat, right? And then they doubled down on Vucevic, right? And like he's really solid, and he's on a team that is kind of better than them. Like right now, the way that they're playing top to bottom, I would trust that roster in a 7-game series.
And they have Scott Skiles, which is no joke.
Like Gortat hit his.
I don't know about this whole like big man paradigm shifting. I mean, like the teams at the top of the Eastern Conference are still the Cavaliers. It's not. I mean, whatever they have.
Those teams are just stacked. That's.
Well, one of them is the Pacers, and the Pacers, their front court is terrible. I mean,
but even Granite said, they're kind of hot right now, and.
But it has nothing to do with their big men. It has everything to do with like Paul George being
well, but but he can create, and Ellis can create, and Hill can create. Like Wall can create to a certain degree, but he's not going to be pulling up hitting threes like Paul George can. And the stats have shown that Beal on his own is not as creative of an offensive player.
Well, that kind of goes back to your point. They don't have a bunch of impact. the Pacers are doing it with a bunch of players who have talent and can create their own shots and whatever. And the Wizards, unfortunately, have been like a system team these past few years, with John Wall being the sole creator for that squad. I mean, they really don't have a secondary playmaker, which is it's a hard thing.
Yeah.
It's a hard spot to be in.
If you had a gun to your head right now, would you say that the Wizards are making the playoffs?
I'm going to ride with the Wiz because I did think that they had a chance to contend for the 2 seed. And they should.
I still think they will. I still think they're better than Charlotte.
We're 20 some odd games in this season.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's not exhaust ourselves talking about the Wizards. We still have that fun Philadelphia team.
Let's talk about that team that's lost 20 games this season.
Yeah, why are you talking about Philadelphia again?
Because there's some news. Three pieces of news that came out. So first one, the big one. Well, let's go in chronological order. The big thing was Okafor, but that was kind of a couple of days ago. But
he's back. He got suspended for 2 games. He's back now.
Right.
Yeah, but that would happen to any 19-year-old who's been drunk in Boston.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, seriously. I mean, people pointed out, remember Charles Barkley getting in bar fights? So It's not that big of a deal.
No, it's not.
Well, it's a big deal that he's 19 and he's going to a bar, right?
No.
Okay, cool.
No.
He did sound really it made me dislike him for his attitude, but once again, 19 and money.
Yeah.
It's like, it don't matter if we win. I got money. It's like, oh, God.
Oh, you're talking about in the video itself?
Yeah, he just sounds, well, he sounds like a drunk kid who's 19 has money. I would probably have said the same thing. I'd probably say that tonight if someone gave me $1 million.
You would literally go to Buffalo Wild Wings.
I'd probably pick a fight.
Honestly, right before we started the podcast, someone knocked on my door. I screamed at him.
The one time
I got money, dog. I got to open my door.
The one time Uncle Funny came and visited here, and he rented the Maserati for 3 days. All we did was drive around, bump rap, and then tell girls we drove a Maserati the whole time. Or just in fun. But I
Bobby, also the people that live above you clearly have money if they're renovating, right in the middle of our podcast. So there's money everywhere in that building.
Sad. Woo! People told me you were quick. Jesus Christ.
All right.
Jesus Christ, Bob.
All right, so Okafor does that. Yeah, that's good. And then today the 76ers are out there having a mystery press conference. That's
great. Yeah. There's so much mystery with this franchise.
That's how it was phrased, which I think is just such a silly thing.
It's a mystery why all these people at the top still have their jobs.
Boom.
What if they just set a bag of Doritos there and that's it?
It's a mystery where
That's it.
It's a mystery press conference at 4:30 p.m. and it ended up being that Colangelo, Jerry, is getting hired to be like a special guy. What do you call him? An advisor? I feel like this is a different term.
It's like the basketball version of someone getting elected to or hired to, run FEMA or something. So basically, they have as a disaster,
When you said FEMA, my first thought was FIFA, and then I was like, wait, what? Hold on. And then
that's another disaster.
I eventually got it. So anyway, Colangelo will still be in Phoenix, so he won't be doing day-to-day stuff. And he's going to report directly to Josh Harris, but Sam Hinkie still has the final say over personnel decisions, subject to ownership approval. So the real question here is, what does this mean for Sam Hinkie's job? What does this mean for the process? Josh Harris does wish the process would go faster, but he says we're still committed to the process. I like on the Philadelphia blog, libertyballers.com, they capitalize the process. In process as if it's like,
Did they put a trademark logo by it?
Yeah, exactly, like the process. Anyway,
the announcement.
Do you think
the travesty?
You think Hinkie's job is in trouble?
No, I mean anyone who goes,
They told him to do this, so
anyone who says that, I think the best thing for one of the most historic franchises in basketball would be to hire the equivalent of a Frosh soft team. Obviously, this guy's a genius. There's literally nothing on the horizon that shows you the Sixers are going to be good. Absolutely nothing.
Well, no, that's not so. Bobby, what's the big news? Who's coming over next year?
Dario Saric
next season.
is coming over next season. Well, it says, let me get the exact,
Who they local for?
Dario Saric and his father have both said that he's coming over. But apparently last year they also said the same thing. So.
Don't you just, keep Michael Carter-Williams last year, and is he gonna win you 5 more games by accidentally having him on the team? That's what I don't understand is their inability to commit to some of these guys. And, well, we can talk all day about the Embiid thing, but even if Embiid never plays an NBA game,
which he won't.
Wow.
I don't know. The writing was on the wall with him too, though. I mean, it's just. I don't really care enough about I just feel bad for the people that have to watch the Sixers.
All right. Well, let's not get into feeling bad.
Okay.
For them.
They also give up KJ McDaniels too for no reason, huh?
KJ McDaniels. Now he's 13th man on Houston. It's just like he was the only guy that was you're gonna commit to Tony Roten over that. Just give them Tony Roten.
Yeah.
He was on the block too.
Well, here's the thing that they are doing that's kind of good. They're going to give Brett Brown a contract extension. They're keeping Hinkie, right? And they're
stability in its own weird way.
Exactly. Some stability in its own weird way. So, I mean, look, what they've done in the draft, it's whatever. You can criticize the Embiid thing or whatever. They've basically done fine in the draft. It's everything besides.
Yeah. I think you would say that Noel and Embiid both missed their first both missed their first seasons, and Embiid's missing his second season. So in my book, that's not actually.
Yeah, well, that's fair too.
When you took Nerlens Noel, whatever.
That was one of the worst drafts of all time.
Right. So you can't. In retrospect, you can say that was a bad draft. And then the Embiid one, even if they wouldn't have taken him, he would have still gone in the top 5.
It wasn't in retrospect that it was a bad draft. It was like Noel is like that. Okay, let's see if we can make this guy into what. His projections, but you go with Oladipo. I mean, I feel like you just go with Oladipo.
And then what the hell difference would it make? I mean, fine, they get Oladipo, they would still suck.
And then you get Embiid the next year, and then you're like, okay, now we have some semblance of a 2-guard, a 5, and then next year we get a good.
They already had
Michael Carter-Williams. I don't know. I mean, I'm just.
I feel like most of the problem is everything outside of the draft. Is my thing. Like the drafts, fine, whatever. They could have been a little bit different. It's mostly everything outside of the draft. Like. They don't have anybody over the age of 25.
But it's so offensively clear that they're not trying to be a competitive team. I mean, the guys on the court probably are trying to compete, but they're just not good.
Yeah.
They're not good basketball players, so it sucks.
That's what I'm saying. They haven't compiled a roster outside of the draft.
But who's going to sign with that? Who's going to sign with that kind of a situation?
Anybody who wants money. If they gave them some money and they went out and signed, they could have done what the Lakers wanted to do, or what the Lakers did, Hibbert, Lou Williams, and Brandon Bass. They could have got 3. Why did anybody go sign for? Why would Roy Hibbert, Lou Williams, and Brandon Bass sign with the Lakers? Why in their right mind?
Well, because the Sixers.
We traded Roy Hibbert.
The Sixers are trying to tank, and they might be kind of insensitive to their fans in that way, but they're not trying to murder them.
Subjecting him to Roy Hibbert for a season. Good Lord.
Could Philly do something with the player, just trade for Joe Johnson and let him be Kobe Bryant just for entertainment value? Do the Lakers strategy, tank with a sideshow at the same time? I like that strategy by the Lakers.
Well, you know what they should do then? Just call up Allen Iverson. He's the same draft class as Kobe.
That's nice.
I think he's only in college for 1 year, so he's probably just 38. Get him in there.
Would Iverson be any worse than Kobe? I mean, just looking at the stats,
yes.
Could he do what Kobe's doing right now?
No, because Iverson was a career 40% shooter, so he probably would shoot 10% from the field now.
All right, what about Steph Marbury? Can they get Steph from China, Bob?
No.
You got the Haps.
There's no way. They can't afford him.
Yeah, they can't afford him. You're right.
Well, Alsa's got that stupid tattoo on his head, which there's got to be a thing against that in the NBA, dress code.
Anyone who ate Vaseline on camera should not be allowed back in this country.
That is not talked about enough. The Vaseline eating on camera.
Yeah, that was weird.
Unbelievable. I mean, that was when basketball started to cross into the internet thing, where you're starting to see the personal lives of guys just completely melting down. But
that was the very first example.
Yeah, he was a legend of. I mean, those string of videos should be shown in an art gallery out here one day.
Yeah.
I'd see that above his musical that he's starring in.
That musical is good.
But Bobby, I mean, do you think that? And this is ridiculous to say. 30 wins are in the conversation next year. I mean,
for what? Who?
The Sixers.
Philly.
How do they get
the Lakers? You can't be talking about Philly. It's not even a question.
How do you go from probably 8 to 10 wins this year to 30 to 35 wins?
How do they get there?
100% impossible.
Give me 3 things that they need to do, Grant, if they're going to make that kind of a. That is a insane leap. I mean, they're worse than they were last year.
The way to get there would to be
if they draft Ben Simmons and get
there you go.
Dario and they have Jahlil Okafor, that's a super fun 25 win team that's looking really solid in a couple years. Most definitely.
I agree with that.
Yeah, well, basically Ben Simmons is the linchpin. That has to happen. But basically now we're getting into
And
this.
that would be the idea, the prophecy fully realized. I mean, that was literally from day one, draft the one guy, and that's all you need. That would be
right.
If that happened, that would literally have worked out exactly as he had always planned.
Well, this is their 4th try at it, so if they don't get that guy this year, then I think Hinkie needs to go.
Yeah, I would see. I think next year is the last year, and then it's kind of time to move on.
Because you don't want. I mean, the Philadelphia Sixers have been a great historic franchise and one of the first, but also they know what it's like to be one of the worst teams of all time. They had set the record for losses in a season, so it's like we're going to go through this again. You know, it's not like the Clippers who had a owner who was just insane,
right? And
just like literally just just like the worst racist in professional sports history.
Super cheap, wouldn't sign anybody or keep
exactly.
Anybody.
It was all like a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
If I don't know, I understand the whole mythos behind the like the PowerPoint presentation he gave and what he pitched them on with the James Harden thing, but every year there's a different way to win at basketball, you know, and like look at Daryl Morey, like what he kind of put out there isn't. This is like the point in Daryl Morey's career where he should have the most job stability because they made it to the Western Conference Finals last year.
Yeah.
And now his crazy like numbers game is like finally starting to pay off. Like now people are like, "Oh wow, he's a icon."
Well, I think that if it doesn't work after next year, I don't necessarily know if Hinkie has to go or if they'll just tell him we're going to go a little bit more traditional route. And are you willing to help us do that? And I think he can do that too. Like I don't think it has to be all or none. But the experiment so far, while I'll say I don't enjoy watching the Sixers, I'm not actually against the experiment. Like they're bad, but even if they
I'm not against them beating the Lakers.
I'm saying that even if they were a bit better, they would still be bad. Like the best they could be is still bad. So it doesn't offend my basketball sensibilities.
But they don't. But the thing is, they were doing the opposite of this for a while, where they were trying to be competitive every year. I will say after this season, it's definitely starting to get a little bit. It's starting to become a little bit old and a little bit of a problem for me because it's like the idea of just like the friend who's like, well, I don't need to like have a nice sound plan for my life where I have good principles and I build on them. It's like I'm just going to play the lottery every fucking day,
right?
And one day it's going to hit. And it's like, okay, like you can do that and that's fine, and that's literally what they're doing.
Think about like
or the guy who's like really trying to build principles and do the right thing. Like you said, They have a good coach, we think, and Brett Brown, but after 4 seasons, if it doesn't work next season, and they have another like 15-win season, it'll start to be annoying me because I do want to see quality basketball.
Basically, what you're saying is that guy who's always buying lottery tickets, after 4 years, you're like, all right, man, so
go get a job.
Yeah. What about your kids and the relationship with your friends that you completely ruined? And I mean, look,
this is starting to get personal, Chad. Do you want to just talk about the
guy?
Chad,
let's get into this.
But last thing I will say, sorry, real quick, and this is how I feel about
when
this.
you say real quick, you do. I'm going to hold that too.
Real quick. So after the Lakers lost to the Sixers the other day, their Lakers post game sounded like a suicide hotline. It was hilarious to listen to. But someone was just like, and they played some guy named Covington. Like no one knew who any of the players on the team was, and like. I get it that they're this experiment, they're a shitty ass team, but these aren't NBA players. Like these aren't, and I don't think out of 30 teams and the amount of actually good players who are out there not playing on other teams, that you should have a guy where people are just like, why was he playing? Like why did I spend money to watch this?
That's how people felt about Kobe Bryant playing.
Boom! And on that,
that was it.
That puts our Philly conversation to a rest. All right, listen, podcast break. I have to pee. Sights and sounds, baby. So what do you guys got?
I don't know. Chad, you watch Reddit.
Well, cool thing that you rarely see. I love how you said you watch Reddit. I mean, technically you are watching the clips, but you're reading.
Technically, Grant is 50.
Mostly reading.
You watch that there Reddit.
Did you watch it? Did you watch it through the twit?
You watched that Reddit on that Twitter? Yeah, that's pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, one cool thing that you rarely ever see, maybe once a season, every now and then, a buzzer-beating dunk from Jeff Green yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Chad breaking those stories that nobody talked about. That's good. Buzzer-beating dunk.
It was a buzzer-beating inbound alley-oop. I mean, pretty amazing. No, you don't like it?
Courtney Lee involved again in the best buzzer beater of the season. Last year had it against Sacramento. Had it again yesterday against who the hell they play yesterday?
Yeah, the Grizzlies
The
did
Suns.
this 2 years
They
in a
played
row
the
now.
Suns.
That's right.
You guys are talking about things that everybody see. I got a deep dive for you on the sights and sounds.
Well, let's go deep dive.
Got deep dive. I was watching the Rockets play versus who did they beat? So whatever, some team. And at the free throw line, when they're at the free throw line, they have cheerleaders who wear shorts, and on their shorts it just says distraction on their butt. And they turn around, and they're like they're very close to the basket. Like it's like they're basically underneath the basket, just shaking their butt, and it says distraction on their butt.
Are they like those thick Houston hoes, or what kind of?
They're definitely they were definitely flown in by James Harden. These are James Harden's distraction girls. Is what I'm positing to you.
Did they travel with the team?
They travel with James.
They travel with James. Okay.
But I just can't believe that this is like a thing that's allowed in the NBA. Doesn't that seem like it would be, not allowed? Am I wrong?
No, definitely seems like it'd be allowed.
The letter O in that lineup makes more money than all of us combined, probably. So there you go.
Well, yeah. Anyways, I noticed that I had never seen that before, and I was watching them play.
I mean, we all know what the cheerleading aspect of the NBA gives a certain demographic of fans. I'm always looking at my phone, but
it never does anything for me at the games. On TV, for some reason, it's on TV when they like cut to them. I sort of will be like, oh, what's Miami's girls look like or this. When I'm at Laker games or Clipper games, it's the non-factor for me.
It's a non-factor. They also
if I'm close, I don't care. And they look weird because they have too much makeup on. They look good on TV, but up close, all the makeup is not a good look.
They look weird and also vaguely insane because they're always just like, it's like they never look normal.
Good old musical theater smile.
I looked it up. So it was versus the Pelicans.
Sorry, what was that? The Pelicans? I didn't hear it. What?
Boom. Throw it down. Oh, speaking of the Pelicans, we usually talk about the Pelicans, and then we usually talk about Boogie and Anthony Davis. I'm just going to talk about Boogie. Boogie has been playing terrible, and he said it himself.
Yeah, he did. I saw that.
So
I watched that game last night versus Oklahoma City. I watched the fourth quarter at least, and they were down like 9, and then Darren Collison hit a couple threes, and they got back in it. Omar Caspi hit a 3, and then they were up 6 with like 2.5 minutes left in Oklahoma City, and I'm just watching the game thinking, how are they going to lose this game? Because there's no way they're beating Oklahoma City. Like, 0% chance this is happening. And there you go, right on cue. It's like Russell Westbrook hits a 3, KD hits a 21-foot fadeaway, Boogie misses 2 free throws, a terrible pass by Omar Caspi off a nice steal from Rajon Rondo. It's like, and there's your Sacramento Kings, right on cue. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at the West now, I mean, believe it or not, this is a hot sports take coming in early December, but
if you're going to tell me that those 8 teams in the Western Conference picture right now were going to be our playoff teams, I'd probably believe that. It looks like everyone below them is probably just not good enough.
Wait, are you seeing my screen? I just shared my screen with you. I got the video.
The video of this distraction.
Yeah, hold on.
I see it
All right, bring that up, because if people want to hear anything, it's us watching a video.
Do you see it?
Let's go with that light-skinned girl, though.
Oh my goodness!
Can you believe how close that is right there? I mean, like it's right next to the basket.
Oh, you made it sound like it was a bunch of different girls and they were each a different letter, but that just says straight up distraction.
I don't think I made it sound like that. I think that you just weren't listening to what I was saying.
Some third
Yeah.
So we're basically blaming the Pelicans for losing on that.
Oh yeah, completely. That's it. That was the only reason.
That's 20% Anthony Davis, 80% that girl.
Anthony Davis said after the game, I just couldn't concentrate, dog.
Hey, dog.
He said dog to the reporter. It was kind of weird.
She had so much butt, dog.
I don't know how to stop sharing my screen now. Anyway.
So Bobby's sights and sounds are just about different ways that he can get aroused these days that he's married.
It's difficult. You don't understand the struggle, Chad.
Well, Grant does. What was your sight and sound?
Huh? I got all the sights and sounds I need right at home. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, shout out to Mrs. Jordan.
Shout out to
you
the
were
wife.
just talking about, I think you referred to them as thick-ass hoes.
Oh, yeah. Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I keep it real. I keep it 100.
Yo, dog.
I keep it 100,
no.
Chad.
No.
No.
Okay.
Come on.
Nope. Don't co-sign any of this.
All right, so I think we're almost done, but I got a good who you play for before we go.
Ooh.
I definitely won't know. You watch basketball, right? You besides the Clippers, let's find out.
Hold on,
Chad watches the Reddit, though. On the Reddit, they show stuff like this.
No, they don't.
I gotta pull it up because I don't really know how to pronounce his name, so I'm gonna take a shot at this.
Okay,
Start.
that's a great start.
I'm gonna find a
we've
player
never heard
too.
of him,
I'm
basically.
gonna find a player.
All right, here we go. It is Raul Neto. Neto? Raul?
Oh, yeah.
Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
You got it?
plays-
Oh, wow. All right. Yeah, he actually plays. He gets burned.
He's great for being an okay player.
That's a strong word.
Yeah.
He's great for being an okay player.
Pretty random player.
They got him now in the league. They got Minnesota's got what's his name? Bielgica.
Oh, he's good, the rookie.
Yeah.
He's solid.
Well, he was a EuroLeague MVP, so I mean he's not.
Yeah.
Well, this guy, Raul Neto's from Brazil.
Right. No, I'm saying like these foreign guys that have.
All right, I got
interesting
it.
last
Who he
names.
played for?
Ooh.
Chad,
Ooh.
don't look in the mirror. I know your games. Jeff Withy.
He's still on the Pelicans, right?
No.
Oh.
But you are correct. He did play for the Pelicans, which is also shocking that you knew that. Bobby, you just don't know. You can just say I don't know.
No, but I promise you I have no idea. But I'm going to go ahead and take a guess. I'm going to take a stab.
You have a 1 in 30 chance.
That's right. Denver Nuggets.
Utah Jazz.
I'm on the roster page of the Utah Jazz. You have to be pretty dumb. I'm literally on the roster page. Oh,
well, you definitely didn't think it was the Jazz, so you're not really that dumb. You just weren't.
I'm pretty dumb. I would share my screen again, but it's overkill. But I'm sitting here looking at your video in the right-hand corner, and in the left-hand corner is their roster.
I got another one for you.
Uh-oh.
Is the answer the Utah Jazz?
Joe Young. Do.
It's like I should know this one.
Brooklyn Nets.
Denver Nuggets.
Indiana Pacers. Come on, fellas.
All right, that's enough.
Come
All right.
on.
Anything else?
Mighty Joe Young or
Anything else?
Mighty Joe Young.
Chad, you got any trivia? Any trivia before we go?
let me think about this.
Well,
Pull
no,
it
it's
up.
On
fine.
average, for the listeners, how late is Chad Kinney to every podcast record? A, 3 minutes. B, 7 minutes. Chad, what's the answer? You know.
And those listeners out there, please tweet your responses directly to Chad. Not non-ballers. Tweet them at DJ.
At the real Chad Kenny. What's your at the?
DJ.
X Gojira X.
There you go. Gojira.
The answer though, if you guys want to know, it's over 10 minutes.
It's over 10 minutes, correct.
I gotta remember to not do Japanese impersonations when I go to America, because in China, impersonating a Japanese person is completely okay. Nobody ever says anything. But
That's what they do it all the time.
I do.
Get away with
I just,
casual racism.
well, it's not racist to just say konnichiwa with a Japanese accent. It is to do it with a bow and an accent, but just the accent's fine.
Yeah.
Ni hao. See, that's
Wait,
not racist.
so Lakers gonna win this game, bro?
And with that,
That sounds like off. That's off-camera discussion. All right. Well, thank you for listening. Check us out on iTunes. Subscribe there. Subscribe to us anywhere you do your podcast listening.
It's my Asian girl.
No, there's no
Don't do that
optics for
ever again.
the listeners of this podcast. He was impersonating a Japanese schoolgirl.
Trying to sign off, fellas. I don't know if you caught that.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so check us on iTunes. Go to nonballers.com. You can go to our what's the Redbubble account. Check out the new show Bob and David. That's solid. That's on Netflix. You can find that.
Come on.
And I am.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm done. What are you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say keep checking out looking out for that third season of Rick and Morty. It's not this year, but keep your eyes open for it.
Coming in piping hot in 2016.
I'm not gonna
2016,
sign off
baby.
that one. I saw a couple good episodes though. They do reference Elliott Smith in one of the episodes. I do like that. So signing off here from Hollywood, California. Your co-host Grant Jordan.
Nanjing, China, Bobby Wilson.
And new resident and most popular host, Chad Kenny from Los Angeles, California.
Co-host. Thank you for listening. See you next time, folks. Bye.
Hey man, if you like what you see, you hit that subscribe button.
Can you do
Check
that
out
on
my
the video?
check out my breakdown of Anthony Davis's failures here. And if you like that, check us out here. You have to have multiple things for people to interact with.